I'd also like to introduce Erin McGuire, who's the Governmental Relations Legislative Chair for our CASE division, who's co-sponsoring this webinar along with CEC. We're going to tag team the PowerPoint and tag team some of the questions. So happy that you're all going to be with us in July, and we're getting ready for the hot and steamy weather. It's already about 90 here today and yesterday. So, you know, I've been doing this for almost 2 decades, and it has never been cold for the Legislative Summit. So get ready. So let's give you some basic information. We have 250 people registered as of today. We're so excited. It's more than we had last year. We have 45 states represented and the District of Columbia, and we're working with those other 5 states, and we know that some of them will be registering in the next couple of days, so we'll be very excited. You'll see that we have 200 purchased bus tickets to the Hill. Now, why would I put this on the webinar? Well, it's an important fact because on Tuesday, as you know, we'll be going to the Hill to visit with your members of Congress. And we have scheduled for several buses to take us to the Hill. So in your registration packet online, you have the opportunity to register for the summit, purchase a bus ticket, and also purchase tickets for our social events, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So only 200 people purchase bus tickets. It's certainly not mandatory to go on the bus, but we feel it's the best experience for you. It's the easiest. It's probably the cheapest. At $10 for the ticket, it will cost you more than that to go by either taxi or Uber. Some people may choose to go by Metro. It'll be a little less by Metro. But I would encourage you, if you do not have a bus ticket, please go up on our website or call our customer service number, our 800 number, and request to be registered for a bus ticket. It'll make your experience a lot easier, and it will go more smoothly, I think, for you all. All right, SELS social events. So we try to work hard during the day and have some fun at night. The first social event is Capitol Steps, and this is on Saturday night, July 7th. This is also in conjunction with our leadership event, which is happening on Saturday night and Sunday. And I know some of you will be in on Saturday night. Others of you may not arrive till Sunday. But if you're in town on Saturday and you want a great venue, and this is a political satire, and it's really funny. So again, you can go to our Legislative Summit website and register or call our customer service. And then on Tuesday, after you've had a long day on the Hill, this is a perfect way to unwind, share your Hill stories with your colleagues as we cruise down the Potomac and see the monuments by water and by moonlight. And that's on Tuesday, July 10th. Very close, the docks are in Alexandria, and it's a quick trip from the hotel down to the Alexandria docks. And we have more information up on the website. So encourage you to register for those and join us. We have a lot of people registered as we speak. All right, the next thing is our Capitol Hill congressional appointments, and it's the Google Doc database. For those of you who were with us last week, you know that we spend quite a bit of time looking at the Google Docs database. Many of you have registered your appointments in the Google Docs database. 10 states are particularly active. I went up last night and I looked at all 50 states. Many states have not registered their appointments at this point in time because they're busy probably obtaining those appointments. But as soon as you have the appointments, please register them to the database and keep your members informed. As you know, there is a team leader for every state. When you open the Google Docs database, if you look at the bottom on the left-hand corner, you'll see a list of all your state team members. And on that list includes their email address as well as the designation of who is your state team leader. And this team leader has the responsibility of facilitating the group and making a plan for setting up your appointments. If you've not heard from that person yet, please reach out to them. You have their email address on the Google Docs database. And please, as I said before, as soon as you have your appointments, if you could register them in the database, it keeps all the team members informed, as well as the case and the CEC staff, because if we know that you have an appointment with a particular member of Congress and we have some intelligence to share with you about some of the bills that they voted on or particular issues, we'd like to be able to share those with you. And we also have an opportunity for Annie, who's our resident communications guru, to come and take official pictures during those visits. So lots of reasons to have that information in the database. So the draft schedule of events, this is one of your handouts. It's also published on the SELS website. There is a resources tab at the top of that website page, and all of the resources that we're going to talk about tonight, as well as many others to prepare you for the summit, are on that website. So I'm not going to review the entire schedule of events. I want to do some highlights, but you'll see that we kick off the summit on Sunday night at 3 o'clock. We have two very important keynote address, and then we'll begin reviewing some of our materials and our strategies for state teams. We'll introduce our legislative talking points, and Erin's going to talk to you about them in a few minutes. And then we'll give you some of the logistics for Capitol Hill. We used to do the logistics on Monday afternoon, but people who had attended previously said, you know, we really like to hear about the logistics on Sunday night so we can really think about the big picture. So we'll do that again on Sunday night. On Monday, it'll be a day packed with various speakers who will be coming from agencies and other associations here in Washington, D.C., who have a lot of expertise around the subjects that we will be discussing as a team. We have selected 4 issues for this year, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And we've invited a speaker to talk about each of those subjects in order to give you as much background information about the policy and CEC's legislative recommendations. We have certainly breakfast and lunch together on Monday, and then we end the night with a great event. Is from 6:30 to 7:30 is our reception on the at the Westin Hotel. We've invited Kimberly Ritchie, who's the Deputy Assistant Secretary from OSERS. She's not presently on the draft agenda that you have. She just accepted, and so we'll be adding her to the list. So this is just an opportunity for you to network with your fellow colleagues and other partners who have been invited from over 100 associations, education, disability associations here in the Washington, D.C. area. It's always a lively event, so encourage you to participate. On Tuesday, we begin with breakfast in the hotel. It's a little bit different than last year for those who are returning. We had breakfast on the Hill this year. We're changing it up and having a new experience for this year. We'll have the buses departing the hotel, and then we will have a Hill rally on Capitol Hill, and more information will be coming on that Hill rally. It'll just be an opportunity for us to really get ready, motivate everybody, have a great picture taken in front of the Capitol, and then we've invited Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, who is the author of the STRIVE Act, which is a bill around personnel preparation, recruitment, retention, and also diversifying the workforce. So we're hopeful that he is going to join us, and then we'll go off to our Hill visits for the day, ending the day with the social event, Monuments by Moonlight. On Wednesday, we move into our half-day program with breakfast. Our first town hall is with Johnny Collette, who is the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services at the U.S. Department of Education. we'll have an opportunity to share with each other what we learned on Capitol Hill and some of the stories. And this is, generally one of my favorite parts of the event, hearing all the good work that you did on Monday, and sharing with each other. Then we'll have an opportunity to start gearing up for going home and how you can extend your messaging and your advocacy back in your home states. And we will have a speaker from our Engage CEC Legislative Action Center, who will be telling us more information about how we can stay involved in the next 364 days until we come back again together in 2019 for the next SELS. And then finally, we'll be doing a session on effective advocacy and social media and media relations. And then we'll be closing the event at 11:45. So that's the draft schedule of events. Again, it is draft. We would encourage you to come back and look at it later on in the month to see any updates. It's on the CEC website as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin now, who's going to tell you about our issue briefs and our legislative recommendations.
Thank you, Deb. I'm looking forward, as Deb expressed, to seeing everyone in Washington, and you have had a number of people representing a variety of divisions of CEC, including CASE and many of the other divisions, that have come together to figure out what our talking points and issues should be for this year. For those of you who have been with us before, you know that it is our intent to try to ensure to prepare everyone to speak to a group of topics that will be consistent inside of the conversations across the Capitol when we go and visit with our delegation, in order to have the greatest impact possible when we go and visit our folks up on the Hill. So often, for the last several years, there's been an IDEA informational brief. You'll be able to take a look at these briefs on the website once they're all finished. They're coming soon, as you can note on the slide. This is a general informational brief, and what you'll notice is that it's important to have that, especially for some of the newer staffers who may not have as much experience around IDEA, and it really provides a good basis for that. Every year we speak to education appropriations, and there will be an issue brief as well as an appropriations chart and recommendations. When we go to the Hill, it's important that we come with what we're looking for, and often when we talk about our issues, it is tied to federal appropriations and reference to those topics. So that will be another issue brief that you will see come forward. We last year spoke, for those of you who are with us, spoke about keeping public funds in public education, and lo and behold, we need to keep that on the table. That continues to be an ongoing topic in Washington, and something that we will be continuing to discuss and make sure that we focus on that issue when we go and have our conversations. One of CEC's most prominent issues this year in particular is around special education teacher and early intervention provider shortages, and this is a new topic that we will be taking to the Hill this year. As Deb mentioned, Cory Booker has been focusing on this. There are a number of other folks who believe that this is a really important topic, and what we all know is it's a critical topic, and we really need the support of the federal government in reference to addressing these issues. So you will see that come forward in an issue brief. And then something that I also know all of you is near and dear to your heart: social and emotional learning, positive school climate, and mental health supports. We'll be spending a good deal of time on this issue brief as we do our preparation, because it is important that while much of the conversation has been about school shootings and really horrific events that have taken place in our schools, we will also be focusing on the positive impacts that social emotional learning can have separate from that issue, but also recognizing that that may come up as we have the conversations. And so we have an issue brief that addresses the topics and really will help us move forward with this issue as we have the conversations. And then there will be legislative recommendations that are contained within each of our issue briefs, and there will also be one singular document that shares with everyone what all of the legislative recommendations are. These are the topics that will help us on our day of preparation, guide our work. These topics will guide the presenters that are coming forward, and they will be used to help prepare everyone. I did want to mention something that we will be doing new this year, and that is we will have an early bird session on Monday morning that there will be actually 3 different sessions. One of them will be for folks who have never done this before, where it's your first time, and tips and ideas that you can share, and an opportunity to ask questions of some administrators and leaders and teachers who have been doing this for a while. And then there will also be an early bird session for those folks who have been coming for many years. Many of you are very experienced in this and may want to dive deeper into some other areas. And so there'll be a session also for graduate students who are planning on coming and visiting us in Washington for this summit. So we're really excited to use our issue briefs as well as some of our breakout sessions and our presenters to make sure everyone is very ready and comfortable to have the conversation with their congressional delegation in reference to these topics. As noted at the beginning of the webinar, you may have a series of questions about these. I would go ahead and jot those down, and I think at the end we're either you can raise your hand and ask questions, or you can type them right into the chat box and we can answer any questions that you may have. So those are the issue briefs. They're coming. We are in the final throes of making sure that the editors take a look at them and they are well presented aesthetically as well as highly rich from a content perspective. And those will be in your hands before you leave for SELS for the summit, so that you have an opportunity to take a look at those, get familiar with them, and get ready for your day of preparation in reference to these topics. All right, Deb, if you want to move forward. We wanted to take a moment to let you know that, and I believe there's a handout on this, that storytelling inside of your conversations with your congressional delegation is really important. For those of you who advocate regularly in your state, what you know is that legislators often listen to stories, and those are very meaningful. It's the way that they often connect with their constituencies, and it is no different in Washington. Stories are the way into the conversation and a way to help people listen. When you simply present facts and data and research, there sometimes, once in a while, you'll watch people glaze over as you're having these conversations. But when you weave in those personal stories, that elevator speech, the very meaningful one-on-one conversations that you have with people, it really makes a difference. And so we will work with you at the summit to develop your story, but I recommend that you collect some stories in your preparation before you come to Washington, so that you might be thinking about how you might share stories that really make that difference. We do want to tell compelling stories, but also use data to make sure that we articulate what we are looking for outcomes for children and how the investment matters. And so the more preparation you do for that, the more ready you will be to engage in those conversations on the Hill, which really make all the difference in my experience. Deb, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, great. So as Erin suggested, having data will be important to help illuminate your stories. You know, we want the human side of the stories about children, about professionals, but we also want to back them up by evidence-based data. And so over the years, we've created what we call the sample data form, which is on your screen. It also is located in the resources tab on the CEC SELS website. This is only a sampling of data. You may have some other data that would be pertinent to your state that you would want to bring. There may be opportunities for you to talk from a federal perspective, a state perspective, or a local perspective. You want to bring it home to the member of Congress. So you want to say, if I'm from Washington, D.C., no, that's not a good example. Let me give another example. Alexandria County School District. All right, so Alexandria County School District, where I live, if we don't receive full funding of IDA, X, Y, and Z may not occur in our schools and in our classrooms. So knowing, how it relates to your particular local school district, your university program within the state, if you happen to be at an SEA level, from the state level, whichever perspective you bring, that's what you want to bring data from, because as you know, you're going to be part of a state team. And so some states are very large, some states are medium sized, and some are small. It's like the three bears. But what's the beauty of those state teams is that you've got people representing all different roles and responsibilities who are on the state team, including higher ed faculty, including teachers, including teacher candidates, grad students, administrators, etc. And so it's always really important to have a story from each perspective with data to back it up. So you'll see that we've given some examples of child data on here, followed up at the bottom in the blue box with some funding data about what's happening in your state. And then I know you can't see the second page on here, but just to give you an idea, the second page has other data. We talk about some of the issues around maintenance of effort, strategies for ensuring quality services through increased funding, looking at how collaboration across your state and your local providers exists around mental health services. We're also looking at perhaps research grants that are in your state currently that have been funded with federal dollars, and what the issues the research grant are studying. We also know that the shortages is a big signature issue for us this year, and so it will be also good for you to come to the table with stories about what teacher shortages are in your area, and what the impact they have on children, and what impact they have on the professionals themselves. So we're focusing in on preparation and recruitment of teachers and faculty members. So take a look at that. We've been talking a lot in the field through the Policy Insider, through our work at the federal level, on some of the issues around disproportionality and discipline, suspension and expulsion, restraint and seclusion. I mean, the list goes on. So, choose a story and then back it up with data. And this is not something that you'll necessarily leave, but this is more of a worksheet for you to jot down your ideas and bring them to your state team as you begin planning for your visits. You'll have an opportunity to sit in state teams on Monday afternoon for an extended period of time to decide how you'll deliver your messages and who will deliver those messages and what stories you'll tell. Throughout the day on Monday, you'll also have an opportunity after each issue is presented by a national expert. You'll have an opportunity to again sit in state teams and talk about what are the implications for your state and your local school districts and your university programs around these particular issues. So you'll have lots of time to discuss these issues and develop a plan as state leaders before you go up on the Hill on Tuesday. Just to remind you about our pre-summit webinars, you'll see that we have 2 more left. We have the June 26th seminar, which will be talking about conducting a successful congressional meeting. All right, so you've entered the door of your senator or your representative, and now you're ready to speak as a team. You got 20 minutes. How do you deliver those elevator speeches? And that's what we'll be spending some time next week in talking with you about. We'll be doing also some of that and preparing you when you come on Sunday night. Myrna Mandalowitz, who has done this intro session for us every year, does a fabulous job of talking about the ins and outs of conducting successful congressional meetings. And then finally, on July 5th, we'll talk more with you about the summit logistics, some of our follow-up, including our Capitol Hill debriefing forum, and everything you need to know about coming to Washington, and being with us for a couple of days. You need to register for each of the 4 webinars. You have received weekly email information about our seminars as well as some of the logistics. So we'll be doing another mailing next week, but on Monday you received a mailing with all of the links to the webinars to register, as well as on Tuesday you received another email from us talking about details of the summit with links to the webinar. So take a look at those and please register and join us on June 26th and July 5th. All right, so now it's your turn. So questions, either in the chat box, type them in, or if you have a question, raise your hand, and Erin and I will try to do our best to answer them.
Okay, so we'll give you guys just a second. I know if you're typing in the chat box, sometimes figuring out where your keys are after listening for a while can take a minute. If you do have a question, like Deb said, there's a raise your hand button on your screen. If you hit that, I'm happy to unmute you. We did get a question in the chat box. Norm, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. He's coming as more of a community advocate for a special ed PTA. How do you suggest people who may not be higher ed or may not be a teacher, how do you suggest people find other attendees that are in similar roles to them? Deb and Erin, you've both obviously had a lot of experience with this event. Any suggestions? Or if there's anyone on who's attended in the past, do you have any suggestions for connecting with folks not just from your state, but from the event as a whole?
Hi, Norm. Thanks for that great question. You and I have emailed back and forth over the course of the last couple of months. So, you know, the family perspective is an important one, and we've had lots of team members who have been family members of children or family parents of children with disabilities or gifts and talents. And so they've added the family voice on the state teams, which has been is certainly an important voice, and the stories and the data that they can bring to the table. So I'm glad you will be coming and giving that perspective to your state team. You know, we have a lot of time for networking at the meeting, and so I think it'll be easy for you to link with other like role individuals who they are at the meeting for you to have an opportunity to network. Erin, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, and part of this may be about just figuring out who's in the room, which often is something that we can do as we introduce, as we begin our time together. And I've watched Deb do that regularly at the beginning of the summit, where how many special ed directors are in the room, how many early childhood, how many graduate students. We certainly get really excited about those who are entering our field and wanting to support that, and how many parents are in the room, and other folks, OTs and PTs, related service providers. So one of the things that, Deb, we could make a note to do is just to make sure that we have people stand who are in particular roles so that the room can notice the audience. And it's helpful for us as presenters, as we also want to make sure that we're inclusive of all of the folks in the room. So that's something that we could do that might help you with that.
Great. Okay, we've got a comment from Nate. So Nate, let me you have yourself muted, I think. So if you can hit your microphone button, it should turn green. Hey, Nate.
All right. I just had a question about the appointments database. We have an extra name on ours that we weren't aware of, and it's like highlighted in a different color. Any idea what that means?
Okay, so yesterday we had new members join the team. So those who registered this past week are highlighted in yellow. So they're and that was explained in the email that we sent with the update yesterday. So Nate, you're the Nate hails from Utah, and he's been a CAN coordinator and a state president in Utah. So he's an experienced advocate with our meetings. So you just need to welcome that person to the team and get them in the fold.
Okay,
And-
I just noticed that today. I guess
Yeah.
I missed that in the email, so I'll reach out to them, and thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, and you know, Nate, next week we'll be adding, every Tuesday we add new people that register. I think we have the bulk of people registered now, but those of you who are on the call, if you're a state leader, next week we'll highlight the new member in a new color so that you know that someone new has joined your team.
All right, so before we get to our next verbal question, related to what Nate said just now, someone else mentioned that they haven't received the emails. Sometimes our emails that come from our big email system can trigger school spam filters. So be sure to check your spam filter, or maybe check with your IT team to see what they're blocking from you. But those emails will also be linked on the Special Education Legislative Summit website under pre-conference resources. So you can access that at any time and see the versions of emails that have been sent out, as well as find these webinar recordings.
And if anyone can't find it, I would be happy to send it to you individually. You can send me an email, and I'll tell you my email really quickly. Deb, D-E-B-Z, debz at cec.sped, sped.org, and I'll be happy to send it to you. There was an email this week on Monday, and there was also one on Tuesday.
All right, and for our next question, I'll have Dr. Luann Purcell, who's the Executive Director of CASE and also is intimately involved with this event, share with us. She's always got something good to say.
Thank you. That's hard to follow, but I just wanted to mention, when there was a comment earlier about connecting with other people who are similar in their desire and all, our reception on Monday night is also a great time to work and network with folks. And I would suggest that folks also use their social media to try to find other people within the group. It will be a large group. We are hoping that we'll have over 300 in that room. But to me, I think we always find each other. But that's another suggestion. And I just wanted to really encourage folks to take the reception as an opportunity. We have invited the leaders of other associations at the national level, and it's always fun to go back to your state and say, oh, I met the executive director of the elementary school principals or whatever. They won't be there because they're having a conference in Florida that at the same time, but there will be other associations there. So there'll be opportunities for you to get together with folks, and the reception's always a great one.
All right, thanks, Luann. I told you guys she always has something really helpful to add. Social media is a great way to connect with your fellow attendees. We are using the hashtag 4, like the numeral 4, special education for all of our Special Education Legislative Summit tweets. And you can find a Twitter feed of that on the website as well. Okay, so some questions came in through the chat box. Is there a template or a preferred response we should give to congressmen who are requesting a draft of discussion topics? I know we talked about which topics we're covering in general are for issue briefs.
This is Erin, and one of the things that we often have done historically as we've gone to make our appointments is we've actually in the email talked about some of the topics that we want to discuss. And so I don't know if we've not provided a template necessarily, but we have preloaded some of the conversations we're looking to have, because before, when we weren't doing that, we were often getting this request, well, what is this meeting for? And so we in Vermont actually started including some of those topics in the email. These are some conversations we'd like to have. And of course, we are open to any other conversations or questions that might be of interest to the senator or representative. And I'll let Deb speak more to that.
Yeah, that's great, Erin. Yeah, the other thing that we will have, just as a piece of information for those who are new to this, you will have a Hill folder that your team will be taking to the member of Congress that will have all of the issue briefs in it, as well as the legislative recommendations. So that will be a helpful leave behind. But in relation to preparing them ahead of time, they want to have a feel of what the overall topics are. They don't necessarily need to go into any depth on them. So you could provide the 4 issue brief topics that Erin just reviewed with you, and that would be sufficient.
All right. This is a great question. I'm gonna butcher your name when I say it wrong. Heike, how many visits can I schedule?
Well, as much time as you have in the 8 hours. So if you look at the schedule on Monday, you'll see that we start out with the Hill Rally, and then we begin our meetings. We suggest that you not begin your meetings until about 9 o'clock for a couple of reasons. One, we'd like for you to be at the Hill Rally, and 2, that most members of Congress generally don't meet before 9 o'clock. Although there are some early bird sessions. So if you call your scheduler in your senator's office and they say, we'd love to meet you at 8 o'clock, it's the only time the senator has free, can you come then? Scoop up that appointment and take it, and we will fill you in on the Hill Rally. So just as a guide, usually your meetings will last no more than about 30 minutes, sometimes less, depending on what's going on the Hill. On Tuesday, it will be a day where they'll be taking votes. So it's possible you could walk into the office and the bell rings and tells the senator they have to go vote on the floor, and your meeting is over in 10 minutes. And that's why we suggest the elevator speech. We would suggest that you make your appointments on one side of the Hill. So you might make all of your Senate appointments, if you're able to, in the morning, and then your House visits in the afternoon, or vice versa. And that way you're not running back and forth. That sounds like the ideal schedule, and it often doesn't work out because your members of Congress may not be available during those times. So flexibility is the key. So I would say to walk from the House over to the Senate and go through security, you should probably leave at least a half an hour in between appointments. So you figure a half an hour or so for an appointment, and then if you're walking to the other side, another half an hour. If you're walking to a building, there are 3 Senate buildings on the same side of the Capitol, you need to leave yourself about 15 minutes in between those appointments to walk to the next building or the next office you will be visiting. And I know that you're a first-time attendee, and I would be happy to walk you through this in more detail. We could set up a time and have a conversation, or an email conversation.
I know we're running out of time, but also just wanted to, I think, Deb, right, the rally is on the House side. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is on the House side, so it'll be convenient to move to the House meetings, but over to the Senate is from where the rally will be. It's about not even a 15-minute walk, a 10-minute walk from where the rally is over to the House, to the Senate side. So very.
The other thing is that sometimes, depending on the size of your team, I have seen teams split up before in order to get more visits in. So large states may have a number of people attending, and in order to get to more people, sometimes they might send 3 people to one office and 3 people to another. Is that right, Deb? Isn't that something that sometimes teams?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. It doesn't look like we have any more questions right now. So with that, I will turn it back over to Deb and Erin to wrap up.
Well, just very excited about July. It's always the highlight of my year to have the huge footprint that we're going to have on the Hill on July 10th is very, very exciting for us to get our messages, our successes, and our challenges on the table with our members of Congress. Now more than ever, it's really important that we keep our advocacy strong and our messages strong as we develop and maintain our relationships with our members of Congress. Erin?
I just appreciate everyone's participation this afternoon and the dedication that you're giving to preparation. I do think preparation makes a real difference for people as they go into this experience, and I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone there and also participating on more webinars, and just thank everybody for their participation this afternoon.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll talk to you next week and we'll see you in July.